Welcome to the only debate between the candidates for mayor of the city of Fitchburg, incumbent Mayor Stephen DiNatale and his challenger, Andrew Cordio. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
Issue 1, much money and effort has been and will be invested in the revitalization of downtown Fitchburg. How would you rate these efforts? Do you believe they will yield positive results in terms of return on investment? And what is your long-term vision for downtown? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Kevin. First of all, thank you for hosting this. You've become the Eric Severide. I'm dating myself. You'll know who I'm talking about. I'm not sure anybody else will, some of the older folks that are out there. But I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about the great things going on in the city of Fitchburg, and also to mention some of the challenges and opportunities.
Okay.
The downtown revitalization, that was your question.
Yes, sir.
We have expended a great deal of energy and time with the downtown revitalization, starting with the new city hall and what's happening across the street. There's probably $200 million worth of investment in our downtown, from Morin Square up to the Boulder. We keep specifically focusing on the importance of bringing those businesses and those people downtown that are going to make an effect, none the least of which is housing. We were told several years ago by then Secretary of Housing and Economic Development that we were lacking with adequate amounts of housing. We're making that charge toward that a real one. And Michael Keneally, the new Secretary of Community and Economic Development, is well aware of what we're trying to do. We've got the project at Morin Square. That's going to be 54 units, I believe it is. And that starts from there, moving up another project on North Street. And then going further up, we just began a ribbon cutting actually for Mr. Pelletier's property on right off of Main Street.
Okay.
And then
I'm going to have you hold that thought because the 2 minutes are up. We're going to have Mr. Cordio give his 2-minute answer, and then we'll open it up for public discussion, open discussion where you can continue. Mr. Cordio.
Awesome. Mr. Pelletier's property, is that the one on Day Street, corner of Main and Day?
No, that's proposed.
Okay.
The one is on Mount Vernon, corner of Mount Vernon and Blossom.
Okay, beautiful.
Right.
So I'd like to talk about the ones down on downtown. You talk about a $200 million worth of investment. I think that sounds good on paper. I think if that investment isn't what's best for the city, the big price tag, it's doing nothing. I think if we put the proposed buildings and structures you're talking about on Day Street and on North Street are going to be over 200 units apiece, I believe, from what I've saw, which I think is, we've seen in this city already, we have a hard time policing those types of units. If you see on Pritchard Street, we know the issues that we have down there. Same thing on Water Street. And to go along with those types of buildings, what tends to happen is you devalue the property that's around them because people don't like to really live around those types of buildings. You see it on 1st Street, 2nd Street, 3rd Street when they erected the big building on Water Street. All those properties, all those values went down. And I think erecting those types of properties on Main Street would have a detrimental effect to us. As far as City Hall goes, there's a lot of discussion about City Hall between community members and business owners if we are going to see the return on investment on it. I haven't heard much of a reason how we would see a return on investment. I don't think there's an investor in the world who looked at Fitchburg and said what we need is a better City Hall. I don't think that's what investors are looking for. I think if we continue to encourage local residents to open and own their own businesses, that is going to be the key to really enriching our economic development. That's when Fitchburg was financially successful, is when we had people who lived in the city and owned their own businesses and operated them, and everybody benefited.
We'll open the floor for open discussion on the issue.
Thank you, Kevin. my opponent is running contrary to every axiom that's ever been produced when it comes to regarding putting people on Main Street or in a particular area, because from that generates interest in retail and commercial, which is what will happen in downtown. City Hall, are you proposing that we remain in the old factory, 9,000 square foot building? And that was appropriate, an appropriate seat of government for the people of Fitchburg?
I think the investment of close to $30 million into a building that was
23.5. Not $30 million.
23.5.
Yeah, okay. Far cry from 30. We don't round up that high.
That's spoken like a career politician.
Oh, interesting.
We're not going to see that type of return on investment. I mean, that's great that the employees of the city and the administrators have a nice new place to work. That's great for them, but that's not going to benefit anybody that lives in the city.
Are you aware of what's happening across the street from City Hall?
The theater block? You've been talking about it for a decade. Yeah. I've seen one new...
Not a decade. Don't exaggerate. It hasn't been a decade.
6 years? 8 years?
No, maybe 4. Okay, maybe 4.
Same thing with B.F. Brown?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And another positive, another reason that people will be on Main Street, will be downtown, well, actually in that neighborhood, it will be transformative to that neighborhood, where the Fitchburg arts community is going to go. And that's a reality.
Again, it sounds nice. I think we have a great art community. I love the museum. I think it's great that we do have a strong art community. But again, if we're going to put people in B.F. Brown, that I believe they have to be art students and they're going to be practicing art. Isn't that what's proposed? It's some type of...
Let me clarify once again, sir. It's not students.
No, it's people who graduated.
These are people that fit a certain criteria, could be creative people, not just arts. You give the impression that they're artists, they're painters, they're sculptors. No, it could be anything from high tech to the artist that paints something. All right, and that's, again, what we've discovered on the state level, and hopefully you're going to get a theme here tonight, and it's nothing happens in a vacuum. When you're the mayor, everything is collaborative. We collaborate with each other. We collaborate with the state agencies that I'm well aware of as proof that I was the state rep for almost 10 years. So I know the people we're dealing with. I know how to get things done. That's why there's more activity and more things happening in Fitchburg than there have been for quite some time. And this is what we're doing. We're doing this because this is what's going to work.
I think having an abundance of government contracts enter our downtown is not economically sound.
Government contracts? I'm not sure what that means.
B.F. Brown, subsidized, they'll be subsidized, correct?
It's going to be a mixed use, yeah. Okay, but so you're considering that government?
Well, these are all government-supported ideas. This is all money that we're going to have to ask from the state. The state's going to have to invest, and then the investment that they give us is going to come with some type of strings attached. There always is.
Like what?
The way for Fitchburg to grow economically is not to ask the state for money and beg for state investment, is to influence private investment and to encourage private investment in the city.
And that's what this does as well. It's not just the government. The government helps to spur private investment. That's the reason. Some of the facilities, some of the projects that you mentioned, North Street and Snow, private investment. The Harper Building in Moran Square, private investment. The Ivor Mills Apartments, private investment. Now, there are certain components that are state, they're state assisted, all right? Moran Square is a $23.9 million project. It's used historic tax credits, okay? Historic tax credits.
I'm all for the Moran Square, the old Harper
Low-income
building.
tax credits, other state and private funds, including a loan from Rockland Trust. And that's what makes these projects happen. It's not not in a vacuum. All right, there are a number of different measures and techniques that we use. As I mentioned before, everything I talk about tonight is tied in with collaboration. Not to mention the city and my department heads. Tom Skorowski is probably the best thing that's ever happened to the city. And he's my executive director of community development. His fingerprints are on all of these projects. And he understands the importance of them, and so do I, quite frankly.
So to clarify, I believe the Morin Square, the Harper Furniture investment, I'm all for that. I think there is a difference between taking a building that's empty and being unused and rehabbing it and putting some use to it. And there's a difference between that and then erecting a brand new structure that's going to literally cast a shadow over our downtown.
Okay.
So let's move on to the next topic, and it's going to continue on the same theme but expand it a little bit beyond downtown. Next topic, a big part of economic development, whether it be downtown or anywhere else in the city, is projecting a welcoming message to businesses. Is Fitchburg currently positioned as a competitive community with our neighbors in welcoming businesses? If yes, why? If not, what more can be done? Mr. Cordio.
I think we're making steps in the right direction. I think if you watched the city council meeting last night, they moved the tax base yet again a little further over to the residential from the businesses.
Tuesday night. Yep.
Tuesday night. Yeah. Sorry. Apologize. I think that's a step in the right direction. I think still we can do more as an administration, as a city, to encourage people to bring their businesses to the city. I've talked to numerous people over this summer who have had issues with getting licenses, getting the paperwork from the city on time, dealing with you, Mr. Mayor. They've been unable to contact you, which is unfortunate, which is something I think that I can also bring as a difference to the community. Is I think accessibility has been an issue with our current administration from business owners. That seems to be a very consistent issue that I've heard from people, and I think I can definitely be more grounded and attached to the community and more accessible if I take office. And I think that those types of philosophical differences make a big difference in a city like Fitchburg.
Mayor DiNatale, 2 minutes.
You're saying that people cannot reach me?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
What do you base that on?
A lot of the conversations
Anecdotal?
I had, let's look at your brand new city hall.
Yeah.
Your brand new mayor's office is up on the 3rd floor. You need a private key card or a elevator to get to you.
No, you do not.
Yes, you do.
Not. No, you don't. You do not. When City Hall is open for business, it's accessed for anyone. There is no key card to get in. All right? That's right.
Okay.
There's a key card. If I go over there now because it's after hours, yeah, there's a key card. But there isn't for a citizen.
Well, the mayor's office used to be the first room on the left.
You call my office, and you can get an appointment with me when you wish.
That's awesome you say that now. That's just not what I've heard from the constituents. I've been talking to people all summer, and that's not what they say to me.
That's anecdote, all right? We have never, if you reach out to my office, that's an affront to my administrative assistant and to my chief of staff. You think they're just ignoring people? Come on. Not what's happening. You want to talk to me, you can talk to me anytime you want. And I'm kind of old-fashioned that way. I like to talk to people face to face.
Do you have any open office hours?
No, you can't have open office hours. You think you're going to have a time put aside just for office hours when you've got meetings upon meetings happening at a breakneck pace?
I think if you prioritize 1 hour a week to have an open office hour for anybody from the city to be able to come up and approach you and talk to you face to face, that's absolutely doable.
So what happens after an hour?
What do you mean what happens after an hour?
I don't know. You got some person in your office for an hour, and their issue goes beyond that hour, but you have an appointment to go to it after that hour.
Well, at least they got to speak to me. Hopefully they feel a little bit better.
Well, I mean, they
didn't just get a cardboard box email response.
Just as easily. That's specious, your comment. It's not true. It's not true. You get
That's
that
an opinion.
Anecdotal?
There's a big difference of opinion in this city between how the city is run. I don't have any personal issues with you, Mr. Mayor. I want to make that very clear. I would
hope not.
Absolutely not.
Right.
But I think that economically and philosophically, there are things that we can change in this city, and the way that the average person is treated right now is substandard from what I've heard from all the conversations that I've had.
Well, I think that's unfortunate that you're making that a public statement because something that you heard.
Well, it's not like it's anecdotal from one person.
mean,
I've talked to dozens. I've talked to hundreds of people.
Hundreds of people that tell you that they can't get a hold of me.
Yes.
Wow. You don't find that hard to believe? You don't
do?
find that hard to believe? Yeah, that's right. I never turn anyone away. Never.
Okay.
Never. Not
I've
true.
been trying to have a conversation with you for over a year.
When?
What do you mean when?
When? You contacted my office to speak to me.
Of course.
Wow. You know what? I guess my staff and myself, we've just been blatantly ignoring you. I don't recall ever having you as requesting to sit down and speak to me. All right?
Okay.
So again, open discussion, maybe beyond the accessibility of the administration itself. Fitchburg, is it welcoming for businesses in a competitive situation with other communities?
Can I?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what TDI is?
Please enlighten me, sir.
Transformative Development Initiative.
Okay.
All right? That is what's helping making Fitchburg appealing, let's say. Expedited permitting. You know what that means?
I can gather what that means, yeah.
Monthly development reviews. We meet with prospective developers and business people to go through with fire, police, permitting. That's part of our process to make them feel welcome and get them into the city. That's why we've got projects going up everywhere. All right, because we are rolling out the welcome mat for people. So anybody that would say that, it's probably because they've got other issues going on that they're not quite forthcoming about, but that's fine. We will work with anybody to make sure that they have a positive experience in the city of Fitchburg.
All right.
So beyond the administration, when we talk about maybe other boards, commissions, regulatory agencies, Fitchburg Redevelopment Authority, any more thoughts on whether Fitchburg is welcoming for businesses?
I think all the boards, all the people that work for the city work very hard. I think we need the change in the corner office to change. From what I've gathered from people is that there is a sense of with us or against us coming from the administration, coming from the corner office, coming from City Hall. If you have a question that somebody doesn't want to answer, or if you have a dissenting opinion, you get thrown into a void. And it's unfortunate. And the current administration likes to talk a lot about diversity, but what they are lacking is diversity of thought. If everybody is, a different race and gender and comes from all different backgrounds, that's great. But if they're all thinking in unison, we're not going to see any changes. I think diversity of thought is something that we're kind of lacking in the administration, and it shows itself in the businesses because businesses haven't boomed in the city the way the mayor likes to portray them. Much of the businesses that he portrays as new on Main Street are businesses that are not new, they are different. They're occupying spots of businesses that already went out of business. So that's not a new business, it's just a different business. And we can do more, we can help people, and we can grow this city in a way that is fundamentally different than what we're doing right now.
Since 2017, our small business loan fund went from $80,000, that was one business, to now well over $260,000, supporting 7 businesses. So, including the Moran Square Diner, Strong Style Coffee, and Hollis Hills Farm. We have developed a micro enterprise grant program to support small businesses. We have an additional $350,000 in portfolios, capacity to provide additional supports, grants, and loans to businesses that need it, and have an additional 4 businesses in that pipeline today. leveraging additional funding. In addition, we are continuously working with our partners at the Fitchburg Redevelopment Authority, the Chamber, and Imagine North of Maine, and the private sector to put together our efforts and expand and impact further through joint investment. This is what you're going to have to do when you're the mayor, or you should be doing, is knowing these different agencies.
That's a philosophical difference.
Well, what do you think? You're going to do everything on your own, unilaterally.
I believe the types of businesses that should come to the city should be privately invested in. We shouldn't stick our teeth and get our hooks into brand new businesses coming into the city. That's not fair and valuable business practices. It's just not.
So what do you suggest we do?
We
go in the yellow pages?
Yeah. You look for people to invest into the city who have the money, who want to invest in the city. Okay. You don't bribe people.
It's not bribery.
You're taking taxpayer money to fund loans for private businesses.
That's going to go back into the community. That's going to benefit you and I.
Theoretically, and it's not always the case if you look at the numbers.
All right. We are so far apart on this one. I'm not sure we'll ever bridge that gap.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next topic. Over the past week, the city of Boston placed over 1,000 public employees on unpaid leave after failing to comply with the city's order to get vaccinated for COVID-19 or provide weekly negative test results. The federal and state government has implemented similar policies. Depending on how the numbers go, do you believe the city has the right to require this of public employees, and would you support such measures as mayor? Mr. Mayor.
Are you asking about... Are you asking, Kevin, for a mandate, that kind of thing?
Yeah, mandating that city employees or some city employees get vaccinated or provide weekly negative test results.
I would take great pause in mandating. I'm not a big fan of mandates. What we have done up to this point is, we've done our best to try and increase people getting the vaccination. And if they refuse, and that's their right, then we're asking that they at least are tested on a regular, once a week anyway. So we've done that with our schools. And quite frankly, the schools are important that we have as many teachers and school staff vaccinated as possible, because we don't want to go back to the kids learning from home. That virtual learning is not the way to go. We found that it's not, it's obvious as far as I'm concerned. So in order to do that, we need to make sure we've got teachers in those classrooms. And that's part of the reason why it's so important that we have that kind of a process. And this doesn't happen in a vacuum. We've got the health department involved, the state Department of Public Health, along with the school superintendent, Department of Education, elementary and secondary education. So it doesn't happen unilaterally. It's a process. So, yeah.
So, the question was, they either get vaccinated or have to provide weekly negative test results. Right. So you would be okay with saying you have to provide...
We already do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we already do that.
Mr. Cordio.
So are you saying that you would vaccinate all your employees, or that it's their right? You're not going to mandate vaccines?
No. If you don't choose to get vaccinated, then at the very least, you accept a test.
So then that leads me to ask you, how come you weren't present at the latest Board of Health meeting when our Board of Health was ready to vote to forcibly vaccinate every public school child in the city?
I don't believe that was what was decided.
No, it's not what was decided, because I argued with them on it. It would have been what was decided if I wasn't there.
That's not true. That's never been an issue. Children
getting vaccinated?
No.
Your own Board of Health was going to do it?
No.
What do you mean, no?
No.
Watch the meeting.
I
encourage everybody, please, go out, watch the latest Board of Health meeting. They were going to make you forcibly inject your children with a pharmaceutical drug to make them go to public school. And he was nowhere to be found. He wasn't even at the meeting.
Where were you?
He had no written... I was there. I was there arguing in the Board of Health.
You were there virtually?
Yes.
So was I.
You didn't say anything.
I was
sit in the corner like Batman?
I didn't have to.
So you have no issue with them willing to vaccinate our children?
No, because that wasn't what happened. And it didn't happen.
Under no fault of your own, though. You've been completely silent on the issue.
This is not something that I do in a dictatorial fashion. It doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way.
But it's
You
okay
gotta
for the
take
Board of
into-
Health to dictate that children get
No.
vaccines? They're mandated to get vaccines to do extracurricular
I
activities.
knew they weren't going to do anything
They
like
mandated
that.
them to get vaccines to have extracurricular activities. So you're on board.
Or be tested.
No,
Yes.
not for children. No,
Yes.
they have to get vaccines.
Yes.
I was
High
there. I
school
was at the
students
meeting.
in athletic programs. That's right.
Extracurricular activities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have to get vaccinated.
Or tested.
You need to clarify this with your Board of Health because that's not what they voted on.
Okay. That's you're wrong. All right.
I was there at the meeting. People, please go to FATV.com. Watch the meeting.
Okay. In general, you want to talk about the city's COVID-19, how you feel the response has been, the guidelines, the leadership on
Sure.
through this pandemic. Either one of you.
Yeah, I can.
Sure.
Over 5,400 confirmed COVID-19 cases since March 1st of 2020. Currently, there are declining numbers, but there are over 150 active cases under isolation orders. The Board of Health has passed a COVID vax mandate in schools for staff at the request of Fitchburg Public Schools. There are religious and medical exemptions to the mandate and a test requirement for the unvaccinated.
You need to update
Okay.
your talking points.
This effort was put in place. This is coming from the director of the health department, Steve Curry.
He needs to update his talking points.
This effort was put in place to keep schools staffed and operating, as there already is a staffing shortage, and COVID could severely affect school operations as the city is dedicated to keeping schools open and safe. Board of Health has passed a mask mandate in schools, municipal buildings, and the housing authority to keep these facilities operating and services to residents remain intact. City Hall staff has conducted over 75 clinics, vaccinating over 15,000 people since February 2021. Many clinics were a collaboration with Community Health Connections and the Department of Public Health. Clinics were held for the first responders in schools at the Senior Center, and equity doses were given in a collaboration with MOC, targeting our equity hard-to-reach folks. More clinics will be held in coming weeks, targeting boosters, and the health department plans to utilize the new legislative building to hold those clinics. Health staff has asked the mayor and city council for ARPA funds to improve and expand testing, vaccination efforts, and contact tracing to assist in efforts to reduce the spread of COVID-19. The department plans to utilize more nurses with an effort on bilingual education to help those with vaccine hesitancy. Funds will allow access to epidemiologists and temporary staffing to assist with expanding efforts. We've recently hired a vaccine coordinator to help expand vaccination education and inoculations from $150,000 grant from DPH. You think we should have turned that down?
How much did it cost us?
$150,000. Right. Yep. Okay. Health Department received $550,000 grant in 2020 for COVID efforts with an eye for regionalization of the 13 communities in the Montechusett Public Health Network. Should we have turned that back to that 550 grand?
No, I'm just kind of drowning out with the numbers here.
Okay.
The thing about COVID has never been an issue with getting people vaxxed. The nation did a great job with that. The state did a great job with that. There's places everywhere that you can go get vaxxed. That's great. The issue is with mandates, and the issue is with forcing people to inject themselves with something that they may not want to inject themselves with. The mayor seems like he doesn't agree with that, which is great.
I don't agree with what?
Forcing people to
I don't
take
agree
vaccines.
with that. That's right. I do not. I would take great pause, as I said, with forcing anyone to do something that they don't feel comfortable doing. Thank you.
I would not just take great pause. I would never do that.
Is there anything you would have done differently during this pandemic, or do you believe the city should be doing differently right now in terms of COVID-19 response?
Like I said, I think the state and the whole apparatus to bring the vaccinations and the coming boosters, I think that all went as smooth as we could all have hoped for in such a hasty manner. I think right now we currently have a municipal face mask mandate, which is kind of, irrelevant. The masks, if you look at the numbers, there's no justification for masks. They don't they don't do anything statistically to hinder the spread of the virus. So I don't think that needs to be in place, but.
Would you try to use executive authority to override the Board of Health as mayor? Would you try to test that?
If it came to vaccinating children, absolutely. I would absolutely fight that as much as I could as the mayor. I think on the whole process of the mask mandates, it would be advantageous as someone who wants to fight for the civil liberties of the people of the city to at least form a contrary opinion, but that's not politically advantageous, so I understand why you haven't done that.
Anything else on this?
No.
Okay,
Good.
next topic. A recent study by the Knight Commission on Trust, Media, and Democracy found that with the decline of local newspapers, the poverty of local news outside of large cities in the United States has created so-called news deserts throughout small towns and suburban areas. That decline goes hand in hand with the growth of misinformation and disinformation. Even here, Fitchburg's own local newspaper has not only stopped sponsoring debates like these for our local elections, they haven't even been covering them this cycle. So in a time where people are getting more and more of their information from places like Facebook and Twitter, is there anything you propose to do a better job of getting factual and relevant information out to residents? Mr. Cordio, 2 minutes.
So one thing I started doing online recently as part of my campaign are just quick little 1-minute videos just to update everybody on how things are going, and I think that's something that can continue to happen from the corner office, which I think just that little bit of extra communication directly from the corner office to the people would help garner a sense of unity and really start to build the community that I know can exist here in the city.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Kevin. I believe the city's website provides everything that someone would need to know about city government and how to traverse what you require, what your needs might be. You're right about the newspapers. I think print media is on its last leg, so to speak. I just think it's a foregone conclusion that they probably won't. I don't know what the outlook is for papers like the Sentinel Enterprise, but I may think I may be dating myself. It's not called that anymore, is it?
I think it is.
Is it Sentinel Enterprise?
Yeah.
It is, right? Okay. But what also concerns me is, people relying on Facebook and Twitter and all that. And I think there was just a study recently within the last couple of days that say that it's 75% of the population thinks that it's misinformation or it's being manipulated. And that may well be the case.
So is there anything, other than the website, is there anything we can do to combat misinformation on a local level if we don't have a local newspaper holding accountable even politicians?
And to touch on that, Kevin, it is a shame. We are in, would you call it journalistic wasteland?
Yes.
Is that the term you use? It is. I haven't been approached by the Sentinel. I've called them. I haven't had my phone calls returned, And again, I don't think that's anything nefarious from anybody. It's just the paper's dying, and we have and it's a shame. It's doing a disservice to the community. So there is something that should be done. And I think the only thing that we can do as a mayor is to communicate directly to the people yourself.
I think what has been happening. I know school committee member Sally Cragen has started up her own Reveal. I think she calls it. It's a site that again, it's things that are going on in the city. It's very effective. I think you may see proliferation of those kinds of things, but again, you fall into this whole. Where is the accuracy? But things like, a community newsletter, if you will, I think, with different events that are going on, I think that can be helpful. Contrary to my opponent's position on this, people need to talk to me, and I can give it straight to them. Maybe, again, I'm old-fashioned, but I am available. My staff has never turned anyone away. Never. I don't know where that comes from. I honestly don't. We pride ourselves. Since I was the state rep, Nothing would get me bristled more than when someone said they'd call my office and one time, and we didn't get back to them, because sometimes you miss it. And Joan knows that. Joan's my administrative assistant. She knows that quite well. She knows how important it is to get back to people. That's the first thing we do in the morning, is go through who called and who's looking to talk to me, and I called them back. And if they say they didn't come in and talk to me, I give them back to Joan. Put it in the calendar. Let's go. No problem. It's important.
I would also be willing to meet anybody whenever they want to talk about anything.
Okay. Anything else on this topic from either of you? No.
I think we're good.
Okay. The condition of Fitchburg roads is a question I think we've all been asked before, right? Is the oldie but goodie, it keeps repeating. Continues to be a point of contention for many residents.
Yeah.
As we know, road paving is funded through the state's Chapter 90 funding, which the city does not control. Other than lobbying our local delegation to increase state funding, what, if anything, can you do as mayor to improve Fitchburg's roads? Mayor DiNatale.
We have expended a significant amount of money. Actually, public works capital spending since FY16, when I became the mayor, totals about $17 million. We're doing better than the best we can with what we have. Kevin, you mentioned that Chapter 90 is not within the control of the city. You're right. But I've had conversations with Mass Municipal Association, particularly Jeff Beckwith, he and I have known each other for a number of years. And he's the executive director of that organization. And they're just as frustrated as city mayors are with the lack of appropriate funding into Chapter 90, because that's the only way it's going to happen, to have that significant amount of money. The state is reporting record amounts of revenue coming in, yet there's no movement on Chapter 90. City of Fitchburg gets about $1.2 million. That'll pave a road and a half, maybe. But we don't sit on our hands. We're out there. We're filling potholes. We're doing crack sealing. One of the expenditures out of the $17 million was a skid steer, what they call a skid steer. It's small jobs. It'll grind up the road, and we can pave that section of the road. We've done a lot of those throughout the city. The roads in the city of Fitchburg, it's terrible to say this, because people glaze over when you tell them this, but part of our problem is geographics. It's where we're located. I know people don't want to hear that. They just want the roads to be fixed. I wish it were that simple. But we, again, will continue to do more than the best we can with what we've got. And again, no other mayor in my memory has ever expended the amount of free cash, available funds, that this administration has expended.
Mr. Cordio.
So just by my numbers, which actually this is a quote from Councilor DiNatale, is over the last 5 years, we've spent $900,000 on our roads to help supplement Chapter 90, which $900,000 over 5 years is less than $200,000 a year. Chapter 9 was never meant... 90, excuse me. Chapter 90 was never meant to pave all the roads in the city. The state never said Chapter 90 was going to take care of all of the infrastructure and all of the roads. It was meant to help cities, not meant for cities to rely on Chapter 90 and then complain to the state when they don't get more. We need to take responsibility for ourselves and the way we spend our own money and reprioritize towards our own infrastructure.
So what would you suggest? How do we get the roads paved?
The options are limitless.
Really?
With a reconfiguration of priorities,
okay,
we can add more money to our roads, we can supplement Chapter 90, and it's not impossible the way you make it seem.
What are you going to cut?
What am I going to cut?
Yeah, what would you
I
cut
haven't
to get
taken
that
office
money?
yet. I'm not going to alienate other
Well, no,
departments
I'm
before I
just
take
curious.
office. That's a silly question.
No, it's not a silly
yes, it
question.
is. You have to sit and you have to meet with all the heads of all the departments. Have you been to mayor before?
Yeah.
You don't just say you're going to make cuts out of nowhere. That's silly.
Well, you need
don't
to
ask
find
me that. That's
you need
silly.
to find the money. Where are you going
And
to find
you will.
it?
You absolutely can.
You will.
When you wanted to tear down some offices when you first took office, you found $300,000 for demolition money. You found that. We need $14 million for Crocker Field to help
You know what
complete that
CDBG
grant.
is?
Your quote on that is, "We'll find the money."
You know what CDBG is?
Yes, of course I know
What
what
is that?
CDBG
What
is.
is it?
That's
What's
a
it stand
community
for?
block grant.
What does it stand for?
Community,
What does CDBG stand for?
Community Development Block Grant.
Okay. And that's where that money came from that you're talking about.
What,
And
the
what is that?
$900,000?
What? How much?
The $900,000 over 5 years?
$900,000 again was free cash over the years I've been mayor. No one's ever expended free cash for anything, for roads, certainly for roads. All right?
Well, that's why we're at the issues we're at.
Okay.
Incremental improvement is a real thing.
Yeah.
And we can make the priority to perpetually make our roads a priority. I know it's not sexy. I know it's not a big cool building. I know it's not a brand new city hall, but it's something that the people need. It's something that the businesses need.
But again,
And it's something that will bring people to the city.
where are you getting the money for this?
All the departments can chip in. You don't just take from everybody. The city is big. We have a budget. We had an operating expenditure, what, $139 million this
Yep,
year was our
that's right.
spending budget?
Yep.
I think we can find more than $150,000 for the roads.
150,000?
Yeah.
And what are you going to get done for 150,000?
No, we can find more than that. That's what you're putting towards the roads. $900,000 over 5 years. That's
Yeah.
less than $200,000 a year.
Yeah.
We can do better than that.
Okay. Well, again, until you get into the weeds with that, you can't make a statement like that. It's not that simple. It's not that simple. Because if you're going to take to pave roads, you're taking it from somewhere. Somebody is going to go without. That's the reality.
Or theoretically, maybe the government won't grow at the rate that it's growing. You added 5 new positions coming out of COVID this year.
Why did we?
Because you love to grow government. Because you're a left-wing Democrat
services.
who wants more government, who wants more employees. We have 385 employees in the city of Fitchburg.
Yep.
We're the largest employer in the city of Fitchburg. And they're proud about that, and we shouldn't be proud about that.
That's where you're wrong.
We can't sustain
Largest
that.
employer is not the city of Fitchburg.
Well, you say it on every job opening on
It's
Facebook.
Fitchburg State University, probably very close to us, but more.
Okay.
All right.
So we're the second.
Okay.
That's unsustainable.
Yeah.
Only 170 of them are cops and firefighters.
So you would allow people to have less effective services because you're reluctant to hire 1 or 2 people into a department where, because of all the activity in the city of Fitchburg, all the positive growth, that's required those kinds of positions to be increased because the workload has increased.
Has our population increased?
Actually, it has.
How much?
Over 1,000 people.
Over 1,000 people.
1,000 people.
And that justifies 5 new positions across the city? That's silly. And that's just 5 this year.
What-
You've been in office for 6
what
years.
was-
I forget how many people you've hired. You've hired almost 20 people.
What positions did I place and what jobs? Do you know what those were?
They're mostly clerical and administrative.
Okay. Yeah? That's it? Is that what you think they were?
I know that's
Yeah.
what they were.
Okay. And you think that's specious? I shouldn't have done that.
It adds to the problems of the city. You're putting the thumbprint over the taxpayers even harder. And I understand you want to help people, but that's not the way to do it.
Okay. We differ on that.
I understand. That's why you're a Democrat and I'm a Libertarian.
Okay.
Are there any particular positions that you feel should be eliminated within city government that you would then redirect to
No,
your
wouldn't-
priorities?
It's not about coming in and making cuts. It's about slowing down the growth. He's raised the budget. When he took office, what was it, 2017 you took office? Our operating budget was at $116 million. It's up to almost 140 now. We need to slow that down.
Okay. I propose to you, how do you do that? Where would you cut? Because you'd have to cut. What would you cut? You'd be laying people off, right?
So this is
Would you be laying
this is
people
political
off?
speak because,
But
like I said,
would you be laying people off?
no,
You'd
I
have
wouldn't be
to,
laying
wouldn't you?
people off, but I wouldn't have grown. I won't grow our budget another $25 million in another 6 years. I can promise you that.
Okay. All right.
How much of the $26 million was non-discretionary?
$26 million?
That's what he's using.
Well, it's probably
Yeah.
probably retirement, that continues to grow. We spend $14 million a year on retirement. $14 million. Non-discretion. You can't not pay that. You have to. So right from the start, you're out $14 million.
You've raised our operating budget $25 million over 6 years.
All right, that's probably a lot to do with cost of living increases, normal kinds of increases. All right, the cost of doing business. It's not done cavalierly. You probably would have done the same thing.
I disagree.
Okay.
And if I take office, I will not do the same thing.
Okay.
Our budget will not be at $170 million 6 years from now. It doesn't need to be.
Okay. Any more on this subject?
I'm fine.
All right. Looking back over the past 10 years, name an area where Fitchburg's local government has excelled at, and also please describe an area where local government needs to improve their performance. Mr. Cordio.
Me first. Like I said, I think the COVID stuff they did really well. They everybody who needed the shots, they got the shots. Everything that came in. I think one of the major glaring issues right now in the city is actually our Department of Recreation. The youth programs are virtually non-existent. When I was a kid, we had dozens of Little League teams. I think there's 3 now. If you talk to any of the parents who are involved with, I think Biddy League's gone, completely out of the city. We have no flag football in the city. The youth sports are really have taken a hit, and you see it. It goes up into our high school because the kids aren't involved in our sports in our high schools anymore because they're not getting involved as youth, and it's hurting our community. When you have a good youth program and you have good high school sports, it adds to the community, it adds to the unity of everybody, and it's one of those things that's just it's slowly hurting us.
We could always do better with that. I grant you that. Now, I hate to fall back on it, but COVID had an impact on that as well. I mean, in the last year or so, it's been more than a year. There's a factor of a lack of the same kind of interest that existed when I was a kid, and I'm not using that as an excuse, but we need to we need to do a better job with improving our youth sports, and we will do that. We will do that.
Okay. Area where we've excelled at, area where, well, you already said where we need to improve. Where have we excelled in the past 10 years?
I think we've excelled with bringing businesses and improving the overall lives of the people of the city of Fitchburg. I think the Tuesday night's city council meeting showed that with the assessor's appraisal of how we're doing. We're doing very well. It's really good news, and you can't deny those numbers. So I think we've done a great job at that. What can we do better on? I suppose we could do better with, as my opponent mentions, the parks. That's always an issue. But would you add people to the DPW?
Would I add people to DPW?
Yeah. I mean, to help with the parks, keep them clean and whatnot, and hire a couple more rec department employees.
How many are employees right now? One rec department employee.
That's right.
385 employees for the city, and you have one guy working parks?
Yeah.
Yeah, we should probably rework some of that.
He's not. I'm not talking about keeping them clean and cut and a grass cut. I'm talking
That's what
about
you just said.
Arranging for programs and that kind of thing. Yeah. He's the director.
I'm not
He's not the DPW guy.
Well, you just said if I would hire more people for the DPW to work on parks.
Yeah,
that was your question.
Right.
My question to you was how many do we have right now?
Oh, in the parks?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the number is. 6, 7, something like that. Yeah.
So you're asking me if I would arbitrarily grow a number that you don't know exists?
Well, would you do that?
We need to talk. This is what I'm talking about. That's why you don't propose cuts before you take office.
Okay.
You should know how many people for your DPW work in the parks.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially before you ask a question like that.
Next question, next topic. Fitchburg has been awarded over $30 million in funding from the American Rescue Plan. Fitchburg is putting out requests for proposals out to the community to determine how these funds are distributed. Personally, how would you like to see some of these funds targeted? Mayor DiNatale.
We've established a group of an advisory group that's going to take a look at how the community would like to see those dollars spent. So the ultimate responsibility for how we spend it rests with the mayor. But we've established that advisory group. It's made up of community members along with city councilors as well. And again, that $30 million sounds like a lot of money, and it is. But when we start taking in requests for different organizations and different measures that we can use that money for, it's not going to last that long. But again, that's part of the process, and that's what we're going to be doing. Is we've got the chief procurement officer, the auditor, the health director. They're all part of that process.
So if I could on that, I think that's probably our main difference is how this funding would be taken care of if I did take office. So the people you just mentioned, this advisory committee, this is a hand-picked committee from Mr. DiNatale himself. He's put this committee together, and they're going to make the decisions on how to spend the money for all the rest of us. I think we should at least have a couple meetings where we encourage the city to come in, and the residents can make their own pitches, and we can hear from everybody.
No, that's part of what's happening here. There's requests for proposals went out throughout the community. All right, and that's what this group is going to review. So it's coming from every aspect of the city, from all organizations.
All the departments of the city, not the residents.
The departments.
This is all. These are memos that went out to all the departments.
This
is something that was put on Facebook maybe once, like 2 weeks ago, and not going to get brought up again. But everybody who's involved in the city and everybody who's involved in the establishment, they know what's happening. And that's one of the issues with the city, is that the open communication with the people isn't there. It's you need to be in the establishment to have any type of say as to anything that goes on in the city. And it's wrong, and we can change that.
That website is open and available 24/7 that people can apply to, can ask questions, can request information.
But if they don't know it's there, then they're not going to go look for it.
No, but that we publicize that. It's only been a couple of weeks since it's been up. We've got until 2025 to spend this money.
I understand.
All right?
I'm just saying, I'm running for mayor. I've been following very closely. You guys have made one post about it. That's all.
Okay.
That's not enough.
All right.
We can do
Not
better.
enough. Right.
So the general idea, though, of requests for proposals, getting the input from the community, that's something you're
Yeah, I
okay
think community
with?
involvement is huge. I think this is like a very unique opportunity for us to involve the public and involve everybody and spend this money together as much as we can.
Who do you think who's the public? Who do you think the public is?
The taxpayers.
So any individual can come in and say,
Yes, their opinions should be
I
heard.
want some of this money,
No, not the.
or how to spend it.
Yes, their opinions
Okay,
should
and
be
that's
heard.
available. We're not hiding anything.
I'm not
We're
saying
not-
you're-
well, but that's what I mean. What are you talking about?
communication between the city and the residents
Yeah.
can be better.
Not 2025. Plenty of time. All right.
We had plenty of
launched
time
it.
with our last
We
loan,
just
and you
launched
pushed our city through our city hall right through.
Well, I didn't push it through.
Yes, you did. We had plenty of time to spend that money. We could have talked about that. We could have had
Yeah.
meetings. We could have had city council meetings. We could have had all kinds
We
of
had
opinions
all
come
of
in.
that.
No,
What
we
are you
didn't.
talking- of course
Well,
we did.
They fell on deaf ears.
Of course
Because
they
all the
did.
money went into one building.
Yeah. And we have capital
we're worse off
expenditures,
for it.
so we don't do anything. We don't do anything like a new city hall, Crocker School,
I'm not saying
the
you-
library. What about that? You opposed to those?
What?
Those projects.
I didn't-
Crocker School, the library, along with City Hall.
No, but we need a new Crocker. But like I said, that adds to your doublespeak, because we got a grant for Crocker School, but we're going to need to come up with over $14 million to successfully fund that grant. And when that was in the paper, your quote in the paper was, "We'll find the money, no need to worry about it." But when it comes to a couple $100,000 for the roads, everything blows apart. And it's an inconsistent message, and people are sick of it across the whole community.
You're wrong on that as well. All right. As I mentioned,
We'll see that play out on November 2nd.
As I mentioned, no other mayor has expended the amount of free cash that I have. All right, and we're still doing those other things. We're
You had
still
to borrow
getting them done.
$1.1 million from our free cash just to balance the budget this year.
No, we did not.
Yes, you did.
No, we did
it's
not.
in my notes. Go watch the meeting, everybody.
Okay. Yeah, we borrowed. Where did we get that? Where did we get that?
You took $1.1 million from our free cash to balance our budget.
No, I did not. You're wrong. Flat out wrong.
Okay.
Everybody, please watch the city council meeting. Please go back to the budget meeting. Mr. DiNatale's son was very clear with him that we shouldn't be having to borrow this money to balance our budget. His own son. So I don't know. Maybe you're losing it.
Okay. With that, by virtue of a coin toss, we get to closing statements. Mayor DiNatale, 2 minutes. You go first.
I'm appearing before you today not only as mayor for the previous 6 years, during which the city saw unprecedented growth, but also as a candidate humbly seeking to continue serving you and our great city. Throughout my campaigns, I promised the people of Fitchburg they would see our city grow and our citizens succeed. Our city teams are changing negative narratives and creating the positive Fitchburg story. One of new growth, forward thinking, and defining our own identity. An identity that shows Fitchburg becoming an economic and cultural destination. However, there is still more to be done, work I would like to see through to the finish. Fitchburg, I'm here to tell you, working with community stakeholders, leaders and investors, we have envisioned, planned, and we will continue to execute changes for a better Fitchburg. I'm asking for your vote to carry on our successful efforts and re-elect Stephen DiNatale as your mayor for another term. I call on every resident to join me and commit to the positive Fitchburg story. Be bold, be decisive, and be proud. Together, let us continue to tear down obstacles and collectively build a resurgent Fitchburg. Thank you.
Mr. Cordio, your closing statement.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your time. Thank you, everybody who's helped me so far along this journey. The last few months over the summer, it's been great to help collect everybody's opinions and to the amount of positivity that I felt from people, the amount of what's the word I'm looking for? There's a certain frustration going on right now, and we can get rid of it. I know how to get rid of it. We can do it together. We just have to come on the second. Everybody knows that we need change. Everybody wants change. We can make the change at the top level, and it can go down the reins of government. That's what we need is we need a governmental restructure. We need a philosophical change in what we think success is from the corner office. And the only way we can do that is by changing who's in the corner office.
Andrew Cordio, Mayor Stephen DiNatale, thank you for debating this evening. The election is November 2nd. The decision is up to you, the voters. Bye-bye.